about the collar and told him to take off his collar, which proves that he is Sylphie's servant, with his own hands. Kosuke was very surprised. Sylphie asked Aira again, and everyone sighed in agreement. Kosuke didn't understand what was going on and why everyone had such expressions. Kyubi explained to the boy that if he tried to remove the collar, he would suffocate and die, and whether this was really true. Kosuke flatly refused. He started shouting and asking what they were even talking about. Aira replied that the servant's collar restrained the owner's magical power, constricted the neck, and immobilized the body. However, due to Kosuke not having any magical power at all, his collar does not function at all. Therefore, for Kosuke, this collar is nothing more than a weight on his neck. Kyubi asked if that was true, to which Kosuke replied that she didn't know. Danan then asked the princess if she would like to give some orders. Sylphie immediately told Kosuke that she was ordering him to take off his clothes and everything else. Kosuke started screaming and asked why that was the order, since they insisted he would try to take off the collar. Everyone was surprised and asked if the young man was really capable of such a thing. Melty asked Kosuke if he could really take it off by himself. The boy said that he thought he could take it off. He suddenly remembered some moments he spent with Sylphie that night, and thought about how Sylphie didn't realize that he wasn't affected by the command. He started to think about it, but Sylphie suddenly hit him and asked him what he was thinking about. Melty turned to Kosuke and asked him how long he thought it would take to build the wall. The boy replied that if there were enough blocks, it might take 2 or 3 hours. He wouldn't know until he tried. Melty said that later, when they were done, they would make a big announcement that Kosuke's collar meant nothing and didn't work. This would prove to everyone that Kosuke was helping them of his own free will. Sylphie said that they have a plan for the near future, and once Kosuke is done with the wall, they will give a speech. Melty added that she will make sure that everything goes well. After some time, the young man was in his workshop and was about to start his work, as he was stretching his shoulders. Suddenly, Danan approached him and asked why the boy did nothing to the princess if the servant's collar did not work. Kosuke replied that he believed that by nothing, Danan meant harming Sylphie. That's because there was no reason to do so. Sylphie saved his life. He feels he owes his life to her, so he doesn't see the point in hurting Sylphie. Dan was very surprised. He stood there silently after the boy's answer. Then Kosuke told Sylphie that he wanted to check out the surroundings and such, so he asked the girl if she could send him someone who knew where to go. Danan said that he could accompany the boy. Kosuke asked Sylphie if she minded. The girl smiled and said that she didn't care. Kosuke approached Danan and asked his name again, then said that he was very pleased to meet him. Danan agreed and said that the boy's name was Kosuke, and that he could talk to him more simply. Kosuke agreed and said that it would even be easier that way. He wanted to start at the entrance of the village and walk there. Danan replied that they should go that way. Then they left, and the others smiled and looked at them. After a while, the young man said that it remained to make a large gate. In an instant, he placed a huge gate right between the gap in the wall. Finally, the deed was done, and a huge circular wall stood around the entire perimeter of the village of elves and refugees. Kosuke was pleased and said that it was faster than he expected. Danan replied that he did not think that the boy would really succeed. Then Danan looked at the left side of the wall, and then at the right. Kosuke said that from what Danan saw, he had succeeded. He then asked if such a height would be enough to stop Gizm. Danan asked what the boy meant. Kosuke replied that in the world he lived in, there were insects similar to Gizm. However, they were this small in size, but they could jump onto a person's hair. Danan told the boy not to worry, as Gizmy couldn't jump that high. Their strong paws were needed to jump forward. They usually ambush and attack their prey. They move quickly due to their weight and use their shell as a shield. Sylphie approached them and asked that everything seemed to be ready. Kosuke smiled and said that it was done. Then, Sylphie pointed to the crowd and said that they would start performing then. They climbed the wall, and Kosuke says it's cool because there are so many people there. He even sees elves. Finally, everyone gathered. Sylphie increased the power of her voice with magic and ordered everyone to listen. The girl said that with the help of the villagers, they completed the barrier. The walls they built are so thick and strong that even if the Gizmas try to break in, they don't have to worry about anything. Sylphie is confident of that. It was because of the power of this man, Kosuke, that they were able to create such a powerful barrier in just one day. The girl declares that he is not from their world. There are rumors of lost people from distant places who wander through other worlds under the guidance of spirits or deities. It seems impossible, but there is proof. Kosuke is a person from another world, but there is no magical power in this body. There is absolutely no power. Every living creature in their world has some kind of magical power. Of course, animals, plants, demons, even the smallest insects have magical abilities. However, Kosuke does not have even a fraction of the magic power. This was confirmed by the magic eye of the court magician Eira, but words alone are not confirmation. So Sylphie draws everyone's attention to the servant's collar around Kosuke's neck. They all probably know that no one except the master can remove this collar. The girl looks at Kosuke and smiles. The boy starts to fiddle with the collar, and everyone is scared, because if he tries to take it off, the collar will squeeze his neck. Suddenly, Kosuke takes off this collar, and everyone is incredibly surprised that he took it off. Sylphie said that the collar doesn't work on him because Kosuke doesn't have magical powers. This is proof that he's not from their world. They say that lost people have special powers, but the girl thinks that she doesn't need to explain anything anymore. She holds the collar up in the air and asks if anyone wants to check this collar to make sure it is real. Beastmen come out to the girl. A lizard man, a snake man, and another cat man. The people ask to check for 3. Sylphie puts a collar on the cat man and orders her to kneel. She immediately obeys the order. The girl says that she cannot disobey the order. Then the lizard man puts a collar on the snake man. The girl asks him to do this so she can try to take it off. She tries to take the collar off, but it starts to squeeze her neck. Everyone looked at the boy at once. Sylphie said that now that they were sure that the collar was real, she asked to put the collar on Kosuke. They put a collar on Kosuke. The girl ordered him to kneel. The boy refused. Then she ordered him to kneel again, but he refused. They were surprised. Then the young man takes off the collar and says that he owes his life only to Sylphie. Sylphie then puts the collar on Kosuke and tells him, calling him dear, that she will put the collar on him and take care of him. The girl then said that as everyone saw, the collar was real. Na thinks that now everyone is convinced of this. Kosuke is a guest from another world who has nothing in common with the inhabitants of the Holy Kingdom, which they hate. He is rather their comrade who helps them. From now on, she wants them all to treat Kosuke as a guest and their assistant. Everyone started to applaud the princess and Kosuke. The boy saw that Melty was also applauding, and then he heard the excited screams and thought that it was even a little scary. Sylphie said that it was good to see that they all agreed with her. Starting from tomorrow, they would be conducting preparatory and defensive training for the arrival of Gizem. She wanted everyone to actively participate. Kosuke wonders if this means that some kind of truce has come. Now all that's left is to deal with the Gizmas. The next day, Sylphie said that she was thinking about making a defense plan regarding Gizma. The boy noticed that there were quite a few new faces. There was even the Beast Woman, who had wanted to put a collar on him earlier. The girl said her name was Jagira. She was in the reconnaissance squad of the Royal Army. The other girl said her name was Pirun and she worked with Jagira. The Wolfman said his name was Wog, and he was the commander of the guards in Tanto City. Kosuke thought that Jagira was a cat type, Peruna was probably a harpy, and Wog was something between a dog and a wolf. Then a girl approached the boy and said that her name was Gelda and that she fought in the heavy infantry of the Marinard Kingdom army. Kosuke thought that Gelda was like a bear. Kosuke told Sylphie that even though they were all former soldiers, for some reason, they were mostly girls. Sylphie replied that it was because among the Beastmen, men and women were about equally strong physically, and because there were more women in the population. Then she asked Kosuke to take out weapons from his inventory. The young man agreed and took out new crossbows. Everyone was very surprised and did not understand what these things were that looked like a bow. No one had ever seen such a shape. Sylphie said that it was called a crossbow. She asks Kosuke to demonstrate how to use the crossbow. The boy places a log inside the restored armor. He takes the crossbow and pulls the string until the lock clicks. Then he installs the bolt and the preparation is complete. Then you need to aim and pull the trigger, which results in a shot. Sylphie says that as everyone can see, the shot is powerful. It won't shoot quickly, but the weapon is easy to use. With a little practice, anyone can hit the target quite well. That's all, so they can try shooting themselves. Jagira says she'll try first. Ira also picked up a crossbow. Jagira asked if it was possible to keep the bowstring taut all the time. The young man said that he thought it would have a negative effect on the bowstring and the crossbow itself, but if the girl tidied it up before the fight, it wouldn't be a problem. The girl pulls the bowstring and says that she understands. She crouches and says that this weapon is quite interesting for reconnaissance. This shape is great for stealth shooting. Ira said that the mechanism is not that complicated, however. It is surprising that for such a small size, it is much stronger than a bow. It looks like it would take a lot of skilled craftsmen to make a lot of these things, and the maintenance costs look high too. Kosuke replies that he agrees. It's possible that without him, mass production would have been difficult. Plus, it's unlikely that anyone other than me would be able to maintain the crossbows in working order. Danan says that without Kosuke, however, production and repair of this will be impossible. In terms of weapons, this is a problem. Melty says that in the long term, this is indeed a problem, but for now, things are not so bad. It is quite possible that he will study this mechanism, they will be able to create something similar. Gelda says that with her body type, this thing is difficult to use. VOG adds that he has no complaints. Compared to a bow, this weapon is much simpler. He thinks even townspeople without any combat experience can use it. Kosuke and Sylphie smiled. Jagira said that the weapon was cool and easy to shoot, and the power of the shot was impressive. She asked about the range. Kosuke said that he hadn't tested it, so he couldn't say for sure, but he thought it was about 50 meters. If it's about the arrow's range, he thinks it can fly quite far, but there are questions about the accuracy and power of the shot. Danan then asked Sylphie how many of these crossbows could be prepared. The girl asked what Kosuke would say. The young man said that, with the materials already available, he thought about 300. However, if a large number of bolts were to be made, the iron reserves did not inspire confidence. Sylphie thought about it, and then asked Danan if 300 crossbows would be enough for everyone, including the reserves. Danan replied that it would probably be enough. They had about 100 or 130 people capable of defense. Sylphie says that in that case, she asks Kosuke to be kinder and make 300 crossbows. As for the arrows, let it be 5,000. Kosuke says he has enough iron. He tells Sylphie this for sure. Sylphie says that then tomorrow they will go for the missing materials. She asks him to use everything he has for now so that the boys will have arrows for further testing of the weapons in practice. Kosuke agrees and says that what they already have is enough for this. The young man immediately creates arrows. Everyone is surprised that there are quite a lot of them. Kosuke says that there are 202 arrows. Together with the ones he made before, there are 230 in total. Jagira tells Commander Danan that she will go and test these things quickly. Kosuke tells the girl to just collect as many used arrows as possible. The girl agrees and jumps over the wall. Danan says that she probably won't do anything rash. To test their strength, he'll borrow 2 crossbows and 100 bolts. He gives Milka the crossbow and says that it's her responsibility. The girl agrees. Sylphie says that if there is a shortage of weapons or materials, they should report it. She also tells them to make a list in order of need and submit it tomorrow, and not to wonder if Kosuke can create it or not. Kosuke was scared because the girl said that in front of Melty. Danan and Melty said goodbye. Kosuke thought that it looked like he was about to die from overwork. It was too bad that Melty was giggling stupidly with an expression that was inappropriate for a girl. Sylphie then says that she and Kosuke will go meet the elders. He built the protective wall as promised, so now it's their turn. After some time, they come to the elder's house. The elf girl says that as they expected, this man really came from far away. Who would have thought that the protective wall would be built in one day? Now Sylphie will also be at peace. Sylphie said that not in one day, but in 2, and they've completely lost their minds. The girl said that everyone who speaks like that. However, even if such a high wall can protect against Jism, isn't it questionable to have a human on their side? For now, the main problem and danger is the Gizmas, not this man, but if he dares to attack their village, they will roll him up. The forest disappears when someone kills outside the forest. Everyone was discussing what happened, while Sylphie and Kosuke were standing there. The girl says that was the promise. They will send 20 skilled spirit archers to intercept the Gizma. Kosuke asks Sylphie if 20 of these same spirit archers was really a reasonable number, and who these spirit archers were anyway. Sylphie says that spirit archers are elven warriors who can shoot arrows infused with spirit magic. An arrow accelerated by wind magic can fly twice as far as a normal arrow. The spiritual power concentrated in the arrowhead will disperse explosive energy when it hits the target. One spiritual archer will be like 10 human archers. Kosuke said it was amazing, as expected from a world with magic. It's like a soldier with a grenade, only he can throw it 100 meters. The elf says that tomorrow they will send the leader of the refugees to Danan so they can take advantage of this. Sylphie thanked and bowed. They still have some things to prepare before tomorrow, so they'll go. The elf girl said that it was true. Kosuke and Sylphie would probably want to spend time together, so they wouldn't keep them. They were sure that Sylphie would have incredibly cute children. It must be hard for Kosuke to have fun every night. Next time they come, they will prepare medicine for Kosuke. It helps even their cold-blooded male elves. Since Kosuke is a human, the dosage should be reduced. Everything will be just great, because Sylphie is just great with them. The girl became embarrassed and said goodbye to everyone. She told Kosuke that they were leaving. The young man replied that he would be happy to leave. The elders smiled. Sylphie was very angry and said that these elders had never heard of tact. Then a young man named Nate called Sylphie. He called Kosuke a dirty animal. Sylphie got angry and hit the boy in the face with her fist. Then she went further. Sylphie said that if she heard the boy open his filthy mouth again, she would kill him. Kosuke noted the girl's excellent strike. After a while, Kosuke said that the girl had hit Nate, which made him feel better. Sylphie asked what he was trying to tell Kosuke. The boy smiled and said that he had no idea. Kosuke asked if this Nate was really always picking on her, because he always disliked something. The girl answered that she was just who he wanted to take revenge on for his parents. Kosuke was very surprised that Nate wanted to take revenge on Sylphie for her parents. Sylphie asked if the boy wanted to know her story, although it was not a funny one. Kosuke said that he would listen to whatever she told him. Sylphie said that it all started 3 years ago when a rebellion arose in the Marinard Kingdom, which was a vassal of the Holy Kingdom. The girl at that time, upon learning of the rebellion, could not resist, stole all the spirit stones from the common storage and headed to Marinard. Kosuke replied that this was very presumptuous. Of course, this was immediately noticed and a pursuit was sent after her. Her followers were, at that time, Nate's parents. While she was gone, a group of 317 refugees, led by Danan, crossed the vast desert. Unfortunately, they encountered a pursuing force of 5,000 soldiers sent by the Holy Kingdom. Those bastards were overwhelming compared to Danan's group that was trying to escape. It was like a cat playing with a mouse, whose head he could rip off at any moment. When she saw this, anger and hatred took hold of her, and she attacked the army of the Sacred Kingdom. Because of this, the darkness took over her as a result, and her skin darkened. Her body became stronger, and her muscles became denser. Kosuke asked what the girl meant by her skin darkened, and her muscles became denser. Sylphie explained that if an elf, driven by anger and hatred, uses the power of spirits, darkness envelops him, as elves are something between spirits and humans. Thus, the elf's skin darkens, and his body becomes a killing machine. Kosuke thought about the body's evolution under the influence of a specific situation. Isn't that even more absurd than his abilities? Sylphie said that because of this, elves who were touched by darkness are called tainted and despised. Kosuke asked if that was why Nate disliked her. He then asked about revenge for her parents. The girl said that no matter how many spirit stones the elves had, it was impossible to destroy a 5,000-strong army alone. Gradually, the army of the Sacred Kingdom began to retreat, and the elves, including Nate's parents who were pursuing them, caught up with them. Kosuke asked what had happened then. The girl said that many elves had been killed, but the pursuing army had been destroyed. After that, the surviving elves dubbed her the Witch of the Black Forest. Kosuke thought about killing more than 2,000 people by herself. It was scary. Sylphie said that because of her recklessness, many parents of the current generation of elves in this village died, so they harbored a grudge against her. In the end, her skin color is the mark of a murderer. It seems that Danan and the others feel guilty that because of them, I allowed the darkness to take over Sylphie's body. Her body had changed so much she was white, fragile, and cute. Kosuke smiled and approached Sylphie. She told her to leave her past. He thinks that a girl should love herself the way she is now. Skin color is not important at all. He likes the girl he sees in front of him now. Sylphie smiled and laid her head on Kosuke's shoulder. Then they looked at each other, and their lips touched. They were holding hands at that moment. That pleasant night, the bonds of this couple became even stronger. It was the 7th day of survival. Kosuke was in his workshop, saying that the things he had put in since last night were ready. He found them and thought that this time, the highlight of the program is an improved crossbow. Its shoulders are now metal. He tried to pull the bowstring and realized that it was very difficult. He thinks that if he imagined that he was choosing an action in a game, it should work. He managed to pull the bowstring, and he realizes that he really did it. The ability to choose an action is too imbalanced. He was able to pull this rigid bowstring with one hand. Then he inserts the bolt and decides to shoot the tree. He realizes that the initial speed of the arrow is higher than that of a regular crossbow, so the shot is much more powerful. It's some kind of special weapon that they'll give to the strong guys. You'll have to agree with Sylphie first though, and this thing requires a surprising amount of iron. Now he decides to put it in the corner for the blacksmith. He notices that the number of glass items that can be crafted has increased. He notices the pharmaceuticals tag. It doesn't look like a brewing stand, so it's probably a workbench. He decides not to waste time and put it on crafting. It was in the workbench menu. However, the brewing stand requires too many resources. He decides to prioritize the glass items needed to craft the brewing stand. Then the young man remembers his achievements and skills. If you imagine the action selection function, it seems like there are more new crafting recipes. There is no explanation at all, not a drop of solidarity with users. Of the new achievements, only 3 were blocked. Skills also increased. He decides to take a lumberjack and a demolition worker. With the remaining points, he decides to take a cardiopulmonary function enhancement, a fast runner, and an excellent marksman. Because when using a crossbow, the usual tactic is to strike and retreat. Suddenly, Sylphie appears in the doorway. Kosuke bids the girl good morning. Suddenly, Sylphie gets embarrassed and runs out of the workshop. Kosuke smiles and says what to do. He thinks the girl is cute. Perhaps due to the constant stress, as soon as night falls, Sylphie becomes open and her brakes fly off. When she wakes up in the morning, her great warrior consciousness returns and she goes into a suffering mode due to the feeling of shame. Kosuke thinks it's just amazing. He wants Sylphie to always stay like this. After some time, the girl made breakfast, something like okonomiyaki. The girl turned to Kosuke and asked him not to say anything about the previous night. The young man agreed. The girl then asked if he had finished making crossbows. Kosuke agreed. Sylphie said that they would then give the boys the crossbows they needed for training, and as planned, they would go to collect iron ore. After a while, they arrive at the right place and distribute duties. Someone says that he will patrol the perimeter. If suitable game appears, it must be shot. Kosuke thinks that the view of the landscape makes his hands itch to clear a plot of land for construction. Jagira said that Kosuke will be able to drag home any large catch. She says that she will go and test the power of this improved model. Kosuke thinks about who knew that some crossbow could turn her on like that. Jagira says goodbye and runs away. Peruna says that Jagira is not very good with bows, which is why she liked crossbows so much, since the arrows fly much more accurately. And so the girl asks if there are any other weapons, like crossbows, that even she could use. Kosuke thinks about it. The girl looked at Kosuke with hope in her eyes. Kosuke replied that it wasn't that he had no ideas, but that there was nothing he could get rid of right now. Piruna replied that it was a great pity. She told Sylphie that she would also go on a reconnaissance mission. Sylphie told the girl to be careful. Kosuke thought that bombs or shells with poison gas, or at least a Molotov cocktail, would be enough. Piruna flies away, leaving Kosuke, Aira, and Sylphie alone. Kosuke asks if they will dig. Sylphie says that he can dig as much as she wants. The boy asks if he can dig from above too. Sylphie replies that it doesn't matter, only how he plans to get there. A young man takes out a wooden cube and says he has an idea. He stands under a pyramid of cubes. He flies higher and higher, and Sylphie and Aira stand below and watch the boy. Aira says once again that this is absurd. The young man said it was something like this. Aira said that the young man had climbed up, but how was he planning to get down? The young man places another cube and takes out a pickaxe, then says something like this. Aira watches him. Kosuke says that he will gradually go down while getting materials. The young man makes neat environments. After a while, the young man came down, leaving the straight wall, and asked how it was for girls. It was very simple. Sylphie said that her head was spinning. Aira added that she seemed to understand, but her brain refused to accept it. Sylphie said that in this way, the boy can get over even the fortress wall, and anything at all. The boy says that it seems something like that. He thinks that, frankly, there are more effective means to overcome the fortress wall. At this point, Ira says that she will go and collect. Each time, she never ceases to be amazed. Sylphie asks what gathering Ira is talking about. The girl clarifies that she will be gathering poisonous and medicinal herbs. Sylphie replies that the medicines Ira makes with alchemy heal the wounds and illnesses of refugees. That's why they can't do without her. The young man says he understands, then takes out a pickaxe and says he's going to get more resources. After some time, the young man extracts a lot of different ores and thinks that this is very good. He even extracts 13 mithril ore. The young man thinks that they have collected enough, and there is no trace left of the previous landscape. As a result, he now has about 1,500 units of iron ore, about 500 copper and 200 silver, and there are still 13 mithril. Sylphie and Aira immediately shouted about the mithril ore. Aira ran up to the boy and demanded that he show her the mithril ore quickly. The boy gives her a small stone. Aira says that this is indeed mithril ore, and of excellent quality, although it depends on the smelting. But from this amount of ore, one can make at least 2 swords. Sylphie ordered Kosuke not to dare tell anyone about this ore. Kosuke thought that it seemed like he had dug up something really cool. He takes the ore from Aira and says that he will put it back in his inventory. Suddenly, the young man realizes that he cannot take the ore from Aira. He starts waving his hand and realizes that she will not let go. Kosuke looks at Sylphie, who sighs and tells him that he can give it to Aira. The boy gives Aira the mithril ore, and the girl seems to glow with happiness. Kosuke said that Aira was happy like a child. Sylphie replied that it was because she could use this piece of ore for many different purposes, both in magic and alchemy. Then suddenly, Piruna and Jakira came. Sylphie said that Kosuke should prepare dinner, and they will go and return to the village. At that moment, Aira quickly hid the ore in her pocket, and Piruna and Jakira were surprised by the sight of the earth. They asked if Kosuke really did all of this. They asked how he did it all by himself. Sylphie demanded that Kosuke quickly prepare dinner. Aira asked Kosuke to take the herbs into his inventory. After some time, they returned to the village. Sylphie asked Melty if there was any news. The girl replied that according to the intelligence report, it was confirmed that Gizmis had invaded the forest. They're still only on the outskirts, so she thinks it'll take them a while to get to the village. Sylphie said it would be a good idea to organize a rapid response team to eliminate them. Melty replied that the master thought the same. Then the young man remembered, looking at the simple stoves, about resources. Then he created another building. Aira asked him what it was. The young man said it was a cooking stand. Aira asked again about the cooking stand and suggested that it could be used for cooking. Kosuke replied that she can brew potions with it. He wants to test it, so he asks the girl if he can use her herbs. Aira agrees. The young man opens the panel to see what he can make here. Suddenly, he is very surprised. The young man can create gunpowder. The first recipe for gunpowder is saltpeter, sulfur, and coal. No matter how you look at it, it's just regular black gunpowder. There are several types of gunpowder, but putting them all in one pile is too strange. It's obviously a black powder recipe, but he has a feeling it's going to be a high explosive smokeless powder. Kosuke said that was just absurd. If he had gunpowder, he could make many more different things. For starters, he would craft what he could make right now. He makes some potions, and the girl asks if that's really all he can do. The boy says that the red potion is a health potion. The green one is an antidote. The yellow one is a cure potion. The purple ball is a poison potion. Aira asks what effect the health potion has. The boy asks if it is not for healing. Aira asks if the potion is used externally or internally. The boy says he does not know, but he thinks it will work. Aira asks about the antidote and what kind of poison it is for, or if it can be for any poison. Kosuke replies that it is for poison, so it can most likely be for any poison. Aira asks about the potion for curing diseases, and whether it can be against all diseases. The young man answers that it cures diseases, so against all diseases. Aira was shocked. The young man understands that he is talking nonsense, but he can still answer. The young man asks the girl. Suddenly, Aira, with a dark eye, demands the young man to give her all the potions he made. The young man agrees and puts all the potions in a basket. Kosuke thinks that the girl's gaze is too empty. It's like looking into an abyss, and the abyss is looking back at you. Since it was made by an absurd creature, it can't be that absurd. He looked at Ira's retreating silhouette and thought that these were the words that flashed through his head at that moment. The next day there was a crossbow practice. Danon was in charge of the practice. He said that the group had done a good job and now the next group should get ready. At that moment, QB and others were teaching ordinary citizens how to use a crossbow. The sun was shining very brightly, and the young man was hiding from it in the shadows. Suddenly, Sylphie came up to him and asked him what he was doing there. At that moment, the young man was sitting with a tat loom and spinning a rope from yarn. The young man told the girl that he was making yarn. Sylphie didn't understand why he was doing that. Kosuke replied that he had managed to craft a weaving loom and was preparing the raw materials for it. He adds that he wants to make cloth because it has so many uses. You can never have too much cloth. In survival games, bandages can stop even the worst bleeding. If they have cloth, they can make them. Sylphie realized that she needed to look for clothes for the boy. She looked at his clothes. Kosuke smiled because the girl remembered even such a small thing. He could make his own clothes. It wasn't difficult for him. The girl suggested that the boy go to the warehouse and find something suitable for him. The boy agreed. Sylphie asked where Era was doing. The boy answered that she had taken his potions and gone somewhere. After some time, they came to the warehouse and handed the ore to the employees. They replied that for such a fee, they would find them everything they wanted, so they should not hesitate to contact them. Kosuke was surprised that they were so happy about ordinary ore. The girl replied that he was well versed in earth magic, and after the death of Elder Gaston, the supply of precious stones had significantly decreased. Then an elf girl approaches Kosuke and Sylphie and asks them how she can help. Sylphie says that they need clothes for Kosuke. The girl asks the boy if he needs anything else. He should speak up and not be shy, because he deserves it, thanks to that ore. Kosuke says, "That's great." The boy says that in that case they need leather, glue, and alcohol. The girl asks about alcohol, to which Kosuke replies, something like wine. The taste is unimportant. The stronger the better. The girl agrees and says that she will take them inside so that they can take what they need themselves. Sylphie and Kosuke are looking at the shelves of goods. The girl says that she found clothes that suit the boy's body type so he can try them on in the shade. Kosuke thanks her. After a while, the young man changes his clothes and asks the girls what it's like there. Although the fabric is thick, the clothes made from it are quite comfortable. The elf girl says that the color doesn't suit him very well because of his black hair. Sylphie says that hair can be dyed. Kosuke says that clothes can't go wrong because of the hair color. The boy sits down on a chair, and the elf girl ties up his pants, saying that they are tied up like this. Kosuke thinks that even though their assessment was questionable, as for him, if the clothes are comfortable, then everything is fine. After some time, Sylphie and Kosuke approach the workshop. They are met by a very upset Ira. The girl says that she tested these potions using reagents and animals that she has. Kosuke asks how she did it. The girl got straight to the point. She was able to confirm that all the potions had the stated properties. Without long-term observation, she can't say for sure, but she hasn't noticed any side effects yet. Or better yet, because the instant potency of potions is too high, it is not clear how to evaluate them at all. Kosuke asked why this is. Ira said that Kosuke said that these potions heal wounds, neutralize poisons, and cure illnesses. However, people's lives may depend on them, and it is simply unacceptable to irresponsibly prescribe them without careful study beforehand. Suddenly, Ira starts to feel bad. She starts to cry and apologize to Kosuke. The boy didn't understand why she suddenly started apologizing. The boy asked her not to cry, and then asked Sylphie to help him. The girl replied that she would take Ira on herself, and the young man should go and get down to business. She orders him to finish with these potions already. After a while, the young man was busy with his own affairs and thought that, without a doubt, Ira is a genius. Smart, but taciturn. She gives the impression of someone who conflicts with others or keeps away from everyone. If you think about the last dialogue, she took the potions she had prepared to confirm their effect. Since someone's life could depend on them, she wanted to be able to prescribe them only after a full check. However, after saying this, she began to claim that everything was wrong and apologized, and then suddenly burst into tears. Kosuke does not understand anything, and was the manner of speech a little rude. Then Sylphie calls him and asks the boy to come over for a moment. After a while, they talk about how Ira is jealous of his abilities. Potions were always the result of rigorous training and knowledge of chemistry, and then a young man came along and simply created potions with stunning effects. Seeing this, Ira was beside herself. And now, after finishing the potion test, during the conversation with him, she realized her true feelings, and therefore began to apologize. Somehow it seems similar. Ira says that the boy's strength is not something that the boy acquired for nothing. The boy had to pay for it with everything that he had in the past. She bows and asks the boy for forgiveness. Kosuke replied that he is not angry at all, so he asks Ira not to worry so much. He then notices Melty and Sylphie and asks them why they suddenly became quiet. Sylphie replies that it was just that Ira's words made her a bit thoughtful too. Melty approaches Kosuke and asks if his power really came from being in this world, and Kosuke agrees. In other words, this power is given to him in exchange for his family, friends, and homeland. She asks if she is not right. Kosuke says that it is difficult to argue with anything, and he himself thinks that he has not really thought about it, but he doesn't even know if he will be able to return back to his world. Sylphie said that they wondered if he was using the poor boy too much for their own convenience. Kosuke said that he still owed Sylphie a debt and didn't think he would be able to repay it in full anytime soon, so they shouldn't worry. Besides, he is currently developing his abilities, as he wants to be able to create even more different things. A place where he can eat in peace or wait out the rain and wind, and it goes hand in hand with what they want to do. Plus, they all help him meet his needs, as he does them. Everyone is very happy. It's a win-win. Therefore, he asks the girls not to be shy, because they can use his power as they wish. However, of course, he would like to work without sleep and rest. If there are any complaints, you must definitely say so. Sylphie says that they have agreed. He also tells Ira to treat him as before. He is always interested in discussing magic and alchemy. In his world, there was neither. The girl agrees. He extends his hand and asks if they have made peace. The boy says that this is a custom accepted in his world and is called a handshake. When people make peace or show friendly feelings, they shake hands. Ira talks about shaking hands and agrees by extending her hand. They shake hands and the boy says that they have made peace. Ira smiled and Sylphie and Melty looked at their handshake. Kosuke notices this and suggests that the girls shake hands as well. Sylphie and Melty then shake Kosuke's hand. After a while, Sylphie tells Kosuke to continue crafting. The boy agrees. Sylphie then tells Melty to tell Danan to choose the soldiers for the Gizem extermination operation. They will set out tomorrow morning. The young man comes to his workshop in Sylphie's yard. Sylphie says that today is quiet. The young man replies that before him, he is only self-digging. This time, he did not think and encroached on Ira's territory. He was lucky enough to avoid trouble only because Ira herself is an innocent and pure soul. From the point of view of those who take their craft seriously, his crafting ability is an immediate threat. She easily questions their social status and even their daily lives. It seems he got carried away and went too far. Sylphie told Kosuke that without his power, they wouldn't have a chance of survival, so the boy didn't need to be so upset. If the boy did not use his power to the fullest, they would have problems. She would take care of minor troubles, so the boy should not hold back. Kosuke asked what the girl's wish was. Sylphie says that she will protect the boy. For example, if he is persecuted or exiled because of his strength, she will be on his side. Kosuke replies that when a girl says something like that, it's impossible not to respond. Then the boy says that, really, who's flirting with whom here? Sylphie smiles in response. After some time, the assembly was completed. Kosuke thinks about crafting tires as well. The crossbows and arrows will be ready tonight, so he will also go fight the gizmos tomorrow. Sylphie says that they will get up early tomorrow. The boy agrees and says that they need to get down to business. Sylphie asks Kosuke to stop, as they need to give their bodies a good rest. It was the 8th day of survival. Danan had said that they were moving in groups of 3. The priority was the lives of each of them, not killing Gizem. The harpies were to watch from above so that they wouldn't be surrounded. Kyubi sensed something with your nose. He gestured for Sylphie and Kosuke to stop. Sylphie thought that the gizmos were invading their lands very quickly. At that moment, the girl grabbed her sword, and the boy took his crossbow. They noticed that the soil was exposed. Kyubi took the parka and threw it directly at the exposed soil. The stick landed, and suddenly there was an explosion. Gizm crawled out from this place. Kosuke thought that this was really an ambush interception. This was a serious threat. Gizma attacks. Sylphie shouts that she will go around them from behind, and Kosuke and Kyubi should gradually retreat, but do not stop shooting. Now the attack was in the forest. Kosuke and Kyubi agreed. The boy put his finger on the trigger of the crossbow and thought about imagining that he was pressing the left mouse button. Suddenly, he noticed the sight. The boy takes aim, but at that moment, Kyubi shoots at him. Gizmo screams. Kosuke tells Kyubi that he made a great shot. Suddenly, Gizm notices them. Kosuke thinks that he can try something. The boy takes aim and fires. The arrow hits Gizma right in the head. Kyubi yells at Kosuke that they need to get out. He says that going at her head-on is too dangerous. Kosuke smiles and says that he knows that, then asks Kyubi if he really thinks that he stood in front of her without any plan. Gizma rushes straight at the boy. Suddenly, the boy puts a brick block right in front of the monster, and the monster slams his head right into the block. After a while, Kyubi says that it was disgusting. Sylphie adds that it's not like she's in a position to say anything about that. Kosuke said that he didn't think that a frontal attack would go so smoothly. He had originally planned to use wooden stakes, but he had some doubts that they would be able to stop such a giant. Kyubi didn't understand what the boy was talking about. After a while, Kosuke takes out a structure made of spears. Sylphie says that it's really doubtful that it could stop Gizma. Kyubi added that it was unlikely that Gizma could be pierced with something like that. Kosuke replied that the stakes weren't metal, so it would be problematic to pierce it directly. Sylphie tells the boy that cleaning up the corpse is up to him. Kosuke agrees and assembles a block of bricks first. He plans to install wooden stakes on the outside of the walls later. They are currently in the process of being mass-produced anyway. After some time, the boy puts Gizma's corpse in his inventory. Sylphie suggests that everyone go to the next monster. Kyubi and Kosuke agree. The next time, Kyubi throws a rock at the exposed ground, and Gizma jumps out again. The monster once again rushes straight at the boy, and he places a huge brick block. However, Gizma jumps out of the block, and the boy screams that she is still alive. At that moment, Sylphie comes to their aid and stabs the monster with her sword. Sylphie says that hunting Gizma is so easy for the first time. Kyubi added that as long as they were attacking from nowhere, she didn't think they would lose. Kosuke said that the vile method was quite good. At the moment the wall is covered with stakes, on the bottom of the dry ditch around the structure of stakes is installed. A large number of soldiers armed with crossbows are ready. If the circulation is broken, in no case should one be in underground or above-ground structures. Then, the young man remembers something. Sylphie asks what happened. Because the boy suddenly put up a wall out of nowhere, the boy says that he will only do a small experiment. He then takes out a pickaxe and removes the bottom column of blocks. He then uses a double jump and jumps onto the wall. He is surprised that it does not fall and hangs in the air. Sylphie tells Kyubi that it might be from fatigue, but she sees something strange in front of her eyes. Kyubi replies that he sees it too, so it must really be happening. Kosuke laughs and says that this way he can make a base in the air. He then jumps off the floating wall and apologizes for taking up a bit of his time. Kyubi says it's okay. Kosuke asked Sylphie and Kyubi why they were so exhausted. Kyubi replied that Era kept saying that it was absurd, but now he fully understood why she said that. The boy says he understands, but Sylphie says it's not for him to say. She keeps thinking that it's time to stop being amazed at what the boy is capable of, but somehow she can't do it. Suddenly they hear a sound. Kosuke asks what happened, to which Kyubi replies that he hears Gizmas and not just one or two. It is possible that a whole flock of Gizmas is heading towards them, which is very dangerous and creepy. After some time, the heroes discover a pile of fallen trees. Kyubi senses 3 Gizmas, and then corrects himself and says that there are 4. There was a crunching sound. Kosuke said they were getting close. Kyubi pointed out the exact location, and Sylphie ordered them to hurry. At this time, the Gizmos were chasing a fox girl and a snake girl, who was carrying a lizard boy on her back. The Gizmos were catching up with them. The fox girl told the snake girl to go ahead, and she would hold them back. The girl nodded back and told the narc that she was relying on her. At that moment, the girl jumped up into a tree and shouted at the Gizmas to turn their attention to her. She ordered them to attack her. Then 2 Gizmas crashed into the tree and began to knock it down, tearing it out with its roots. However, the girl deftly jumped onto the branch of another tree. Suddenly, a third gizmo crashes into this tree while the other two are picking at another tree. The fourth gizmo moves away. The girl lost her footing on the tree branch as the third gizmo suddenly hit it, causing her to fall. At that moment, Sylphie ran towards them. The girl said she could see them. First, she had to focus on drawing the enemy's attention to herself. She ordered Kyubi and Kosuke to watch where they were shooting. The two already had their crossbows aimed. At that moment, a girl named Nark fell to the ground and screamed as two gizmos began to attack her. The girl tried to run away, but Sylphie was already behind her. She cut off one monster's head with her sword with extreme speed. At that moment, Kosuke said that he would cover these guys. Sylphie agreed and continued to fight the other gizmos. At that moment, the fourth gizmo attacked the snake girl carrying the lizard man in her arms. Kosuke arrived and shouted to Gizmo to come here. The snake girl approached the boy and asked what he was doing. Kosuke told her not to worry and to duck. Suddenly Gizmo jumped, and he placed 2 brick blocks at once. Then the boy jumped on them with a double jump. He took aim and shot Gizmo straight in the head with the crossbow. Kosuke put the crossbow on his shoulders and smirked. If he could get the monster into his inventory, there would be no question about whether it was alive or dead. It was as easy as pie. At this moment, Nark and Kyubi were shooting at another gizmo with crossbows. Sylphie, who had defeated the last gizmo, said that it seemed to be over. She turned to the others and asked if they were okay. Kosuke answered positively. Nark added that they had helped them out a lot, so they were okay. The snake girl told the princess that everything was fine, but her comrade had a serious wound. Sylphie was afraid that someone had been hurt. The lizard man had an open fracture of his leg. Suddenly, the young man remembered something, namely, that he had a splint that he had made in the morning. The potion's effectiveness was also approved by Ira. An experiment is definitely needed here. More precisely, first aid is needed. He tells the Beastman that the treatment will be painful, so he must endure it. Nark was very surprised that the boy could heal that leg. Sylphie asked them not to worry and to trust Kosuke. First, he takes out a bottle of water and says that the wound needs to be washed. Kosuke notices the head of this reptile and does not understand what kind of expression it has. He assumes that it is in pain. He then takes out a bandage and a splint to apply it all. He has 0 experience with such things. Then the young man notices a pop-up window and presses the use button. The young man realized that his body was moving on its own. The snake girl told him to stop, because first he needed to set the broken bone. The young man put on a splint and the healing process began. No one understood what the crunching sound was that they heard. Then the treatment ended, and somehow the leg straightened itself. Everyone was trying to figure out if everything was okay. The sound of cracking and crunching could be heard all around. Then the young man said that it seemed like the treatment was finished, so he was taking off the bandage. The leg was completely healed. He then gives the healing potion and says that it has been approved by Ira. The snake girl and Nark began to ask their comrade how the potion tastes. The lizard man replied that it tastes slightly bitter. Then the lizard man stood up and started jumping on the spot. He said that it didn't hurt anymore and his leg was completely healed. The girls were shocked because their friend had just had a terrible fracture. They didn't understand what was going on, and it was just absurd. Kosuke said that it seemed like everything had really healed. The lizard man bowed hugely and thanked Kosuke. With such a wound, if it hadn't worked out, he thought he would have had to amputate his leg. Kosuke smiled and said that he was glad he could help. Still, he couldn't figure out what kind of expression the Beastman had on his face. Kosuke says that it is likely that the blood that the lizard man lost has not been restored, so he tells him to be careful and evacuate to a safe area. Sylphie completely agrees. Sylphie then asks the trio how many they managed to kill. The snake girl tells them that they killed 2 gizmos. Sylphie continues and says that, plus the ones they just killed, plus the kill before that, that makes 13. Sylphie thinks that's enough. She says that's all for today, so she suggests that everyone return. She asked the 3 to tell Peruna the order to retreat. After a while, everyone was in the camp. Danan said that is, arrows fired from a crossbow easily penetrate their armor. However, depending on the position of the shooters, 10 or more shots were required for 1 gizmo. Nark said that the 3 of them managed to get off about 2 accurate shots at the very beginning. After that, they had to shoot back while running. If you lure the rest of the gizmos into a trap, Kosuke thought that without his brick blocks and Sylphie in close combat, the others lacked firepower. Danan said that he understood. Sylphie says that it is better to form groups of 6 rather than 3 from the security images. Danon agrees. He then says that he will go and pass on the information about the change of information. Sylphie replies that she is relying on him. Kosuke notices Danon's limping leg and realizes that he has a problem with his leg. He calls Danon and asks him to wait a second. The man asks what's wrong. He asks him to sit down at 100 and show his right leg. Danon said that he had to give instructions to their squads as soon as possible. Kyubi told him to sit down. Then Danon notices a wooden prop. He says that this thing won't heal his leg. He asks if they really think he's a complete fool. He asks them not to mess around. At this point, Kosuke had already put on a splint and bandage and then began the healing process. Danon was very surprised when he heard the sound of cracking and creaking. Sylphie and Kyubi smiled, and the snake girl and her companions watched closely. Suddenly, the man's leg was healed. Kosuke smiled. Danon, shocked, asked the boy what he had done. Kosuke replied that he had simply healed his leg. He then gives the man the medicine and tells him to drink it just in case. The man looks at the potion with tension. Danon then drinks the potion and says it doesn't taste that bad. Kosuke asks how his leg is. The man says his leg doesn't hurt anymore. He bent his knee and was surprised that it also bent. He feels like a fairy is playing a joke on him now. Kosuke says that his leg is fine now, and isn't that a reason to rejoice? And now let's get going, because work doesn't wait. Danon agrees. He runs off to do some business and says that he will definitely thank him later. Everyone was glad that Danon smiled. They were surprised that Kosuke was able to heal Danon's leg with just that wooden splint. Maybe he could help others who had injured arms and legs. Sylphie calls out for Kyubi, and the boy says he will gather them. If there is a way to heal the cripples, it would be better to do so. This way they will increase their military strength and raise their morale. However, Kosuke did not expect that his idea would actually work. Sylphie then turns to the snake girl and asks her if she could call Melty. She wanted to distribute the meat from the gizmos they had brought. After a while, Melty comes in and asks if it really needs to be distributed. She asks how many gizmos this meat is from. Sylphie says that it's for now and that it's from 9 gizmos. Melty is surprised that there are so many. Even if you pickle it, it won't last long, so she wonders what to do. Kosuke is surprised that Melty is so strong. Sylphie said that as long as the meat was in Kosuke's inventory, it wouldn't spoil. Melty asked if that was true. Kosuke thought about Melty burning a hole in him. Then Sylphie tells everyone to distribute the meat from the 2 gizmos. Melty asks Kosuke if he could take this into his inventory. Kosuke thought how good it was that his owner was Sylphie. Melty would have exploited him mercilessly. After some time, Ira approached the camp and saw a huge line of wounded people in a huge tent. After some time, Ira came to Kosuke's tent and asked if everything was okay. At that moment, Kyubi called the next one to come into the tent. Ira was surprised and said that she would do the next one and that it was probably all about adjustment. Kosuke said that everything was fine and he didn't feel sorry. Kyubi brought in a new victim and said that it looked like her knee had been damaged by Gizma's tendril. The girl said hello. Ira bandaged the girl's paw. She asked the girl how her paw was. The girl replied that it wasn't like anything had changed. Kyubi said that this girl had a fracture, it had not healed properly, and her knee was hurting badly. After so long, there was no point in putting on a wooden brace. Kosuke said that Ira should try giving it to him. As a result, the young man applies the treatment, and suddenly the rabbit girl is frightened by terrible sounds. Then the girl's leg was completely healed. Ira asked what the girl would say. The girl jumped up and down and said that her leg didn't hurt anymore. It didn't hurt at all. Then the young man looked at Ira, whose vision was blurred. The young man realized that it was better not to touch her for now. Ira remained in this state until the very end. Finally, it was time for lunch. Ira said that it was just absurd. Danon said that Kosuke's abilities were very versatile. Kosuke added that he would say unusual, but Kyubi added that they were more accurately disordered. Kosuke agreed and said that it was definitely not easy for the gods. As long as there were no bugs, then everything was probably fine. Sylphie replied that there was definitely no problem with his useful skills. Then the warriors who had gone into the forest returned. It seemed that there were no seriously wounded. Then Sylphie cleared her throat and asked what they should do after noon. Kosuke asked what the girl meant. Sylvie replied that she was worried about whether it was a good idea to take the boy to hunt Gizem. If he died, those who could be saved by him would be doomed. Sylvie asked Kosuke what he thought he should do. Kosuke thought that he should first set up a defense on the approach to the wall, but that it wouldn't take too much time and resources. He says he has several ideas for defending the settlement. First of all, visibility must be ensured in front of the walls. Then obstacles must be placed on the approaches to kill the Gizem force that can break through. There is also a possibility of a night battle, so lighting should be prepared. Sylvie asks if the boy has any ideas on how to pull this off. Kosuke smirks and says that they can prepare torches. After some time, the young man makes a torch. He says that by placing the torch on top of the block, they will be able to kill the Gizem breakthrough forces and provide lighting. They will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They'll space them out a little bit apart. Sylvie said that might work. Kyubi tried to drop the torch, but it wouldn't fall. Isla thought it was a tumbler torch. Kosuke says that by cutting down the trees, they will provide visibility. He shows the area they will cut down. They start working. After a while, they finish cutting down the forest. Sylvie and Kosuke stood on the wall and looked at the illuminated area. Kosuke said it looked great. Plus, the torches made it pretty bright now. Sylvie was scared because there was no forest. Kosuke thinks that with this, the Gizmos won't be able to get close to their protective wall. Kosuke then calls out to Kyubi. He says that it doesn't look like the torches are burning out at all. Kosuke smiled and said that it was a torch, and there was nothing to be done. Once a torch was set up, it would burn without stopping until it was destroyed. This was a common occurrence. Era looked at the torch and thought that it was an eternal flame. Sylvie ordered to post guards. They will go to rest. Then the boy looked at the moon and noticed a red moon. He asked Sylvie if the girl thought the moon was red. The girl replied that everything seemed normal. Kosuke asked Ira if she saw that the moon was red. Ira said that if we talk about the color of Lanicle, it seems to be yellow, and today it is still yellow. Sylvie asked Kosuke what was wrong. The boy replied that he didn't know why, but he saw that the moon was red. As far as he knew, a red moon meant that enemies were rapidly approaching. In other words, it is an omen of bloody carnage. At this moment, there were a huge number of Gizmas in the forest. The battle preparations were announced. The inhabitants climbed the wall and prepared their crossbows. Many Gizmas rushed straight towards the village along the area, which was lit by torches. The command to fire was given, and a huge number of crossbow arrows rained down from the wall. The Gizmas began to scream in pain as they passed between the walls with torches. Kosuke announced that everyone should start reloading their crossbows, as their army was simply invincible right now. Jakira laughed and said that their army was at full strength, and the young man was right. She smiled and said that with such a weapon, you want to shoot again and again. She asked Kosuke for more arrows. Kosuke replied that the strength of crossbows is in the number of shooters, and they have about 200 of them here. Kosuke once again announced that everyone should prepare themselves. Roughly speaking, there were about 20 Gizmas attacking at once. If they kept this up, they wouldn't get anywhere near them. They used the bodies of their fallen comrades to get over obstacles. In any case, their guys are very good at reloading their crossbows. Since the moment they were attacked, they continue to fire 1 arrow every 10 seconds. Jakira said that it was because the Beastman's bodies were very durable. She thought that even if they all used improved crossbows now, the shooting speed would not decrease. Kosuke thinks that it looks like he should think about mass-producing improved crossbows. He wonders if there will be enough materials. At this point, Danan commanded the attack. He told the villagers not to let them advance, and then gave the command to advance. The